Hey Earth signs, we are continuing our Venus retrograde series, I guess, and we are now doing Taurus, Virgo and Capricorn. So I've got my cards here. So we are doing a 3-card spread. We've got one card looking at what your heart wants to be open about for Venus retrograde. We've got one card looking at what kind of self-care ritual you should be working on for Venus retrograde. And then we've got one card representing what kind of love you are ready to receive this Venus retrograde. We have started with the Queen of Swords, which is very interesting. The 8 of Pentacles reversed and the Knight of Pentacles. Okay, so we'll look at the Queen of Swords initially as your card for what your heart wants to be open about, what your card wants to remind you of this Venus retrograde. And I feel like the Queen of Swords is telling you to literally just stay strong, and the Queen of Swords is telling you to work on protecting yourself. Perhaps if you've recently found yourself in a situation where you've let your emotions take control, or you've got too invested emotionally, the Queen of Swords is coming here to tell you to take yourself away, go inwards, protect your heart, and think, basically, and to actually lead with your mind more than with your heart for a certain situation that is potentially going on for you right now. She is strong, and she is obviously protecting herself. She is standing with her back face to us, but she still has her head turned, so she's still open. She is still willing to turn to face those who come before her, but she is not quite so ready to truly open herself up to everyone. So I feel like this is what the card is suggesting for us today. The Queen of Swords is suggesting for us to stay protected and to just look after ourselves before we completely unleash our hearts to those who might not have such good intentions. We then have the 8 of Pentacles reversed as our what kind of self-care can we work on at the moment. And I feel like this card actually really resonates quite nicely with this Queen of Swords card, sorry. And I feel like the 8 of Pentacles reversed is basically telling you to not get so involved in rumors and to actually take yourself away from people who aren't bringing you anything, people who aren't bringing you any kind of self-growth, and people who aren't making you feel strong, and people who aren't actually filling your mind with good thoughts. The 8 of Pentacles is very much revolved around this idea of sharing, but I feel like it's not necessarily in such a good way. So your self-care ritual is actually, I think, for Venus retrograde, going to be working on yourself and not listening or not getting involved in the rumor mill or gossip or people who just don't have anything nice to say. We then finally have the Knight of Pentacles as the love that you're ready to receive at the moment. And I feel like this is a really nice card to sort of swoop in and like take us forward, because the love that you're ready to receive is sort of by finding your own strength and sort of by taking yourself off on your own path. I feel like this card is definitely revolved around just being strong in yourself, definitely just trusting in yourself, being confident in yourself. And even if you don't necessarily know where you're going, even if you don't necessarily have a destination in mind, at least you're removing yourself from the situation, and you're removing yourself from the people, like in the 8 of Pentacles and like with the Queen of Swords, who don't bring you any guidance, who don't bring you any good fortune or good faith. And there's a lot of potential in this card, and there's a lot of good fortune in this card. So I feel like it's actually quite interesting that the love that you're ready to receive is coming from you, and the love that you're ready to receive is from perhaps even branching out to people along your journey and people along the way and people that you meet who will actually aid your journey. But having this Queen of Swords card in mind, that they might not always have good intentions, so to stay protected. So that was my Venus retrograde reading for Taurus. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you some guidance. Thank you so much for subscribing to my Patreon. It means so much to me and your support is so gracious. I'll be back tomorrow for another reading. Okay, so we are now on Virgo. And again, if you skip the beginning, if you didn't feel like watching the beginning, we are doing 3 cards. One to sort of represent what your sort of hidden truth is gonna come to light this Venus retrograde. What does your heart want to tell you? What does your heart want to speak to you about? And then we'll be looking at a card to represent what kind of self-care ritual you should be working on at the moment, what kind of self-care should you be practicing, what you should be focusing on in particular. And then finally we'll be doing a card for, we have got the 9 of Wands, the Lovers, and then finally our last card, which is going to come now, is going to be for what kind of love are you ready to receive. We have got the 7 of Swords. Now this card has been appearing a lot at the moment. Immediately just looking at these cards, I feel like you might be working on something at the moment, and this obviously with the Lovers popping up here, this could be a new relationship perhaps, or it could just be with the Wands, some kind of creative project. I am sort of leaning a bit more towards the idea of it being a relationship. I get the feeling that you've started a new relationship and you're sort of wondering where it's taking you. So we start with the 9 of Wands as what your heart wants to speak about and what your heart wants to be open about. And the 9 of Wands implies to me this idea of sort of putting the final pieces together, the idea of doing the finishing touches and working hard on something. So I feel like if it is to do with a relationship, if it does link towards the Lovers, it's this idea of you actually sort of putting more work into this relationship and actually not getting so distracted by external forces and not getting so distracted by what's going on around you, actually taking the time and taking the effort to work on this relationship and sort of putting it back together and actually realizing its potential and pushing it forward. We then obviously, as I just said, have the Lovers for the love that you are, the self-care that you should be working on at the moment. And I feel like this is genuinely telling you to work on your communities and to genuinely sort of remain in your sense of secure community. This idea of not relying on others to be your self-care, but not shutting yourself away from communities and not shutting yourself away from relationships. Your self-care comes from having a strong sense of community. It's not saying that you're reliant on other people, it's just saying that you have a strong sense of community that gives you this sort of motivation to look after yourself and to practice self-care. We then finally have the 7 of Swords as the love that you are ready to receive. And again, I feel like this card really links back to this 9 of Wands card. As you can see, they're both holding on to the final pieces. They're both ready to move forward. So I feel like the love that you're ready to receive is something that is going to push you in the direction that you want to take. Something that is going to give you this motivation, this excitement, this thrill to push yourself forward and to take you in a new direction and to give you the options and support you in what you do. And it's not going to hold you back. It's not going to be something that makes you think that you can't go forward. There is obviously a lot of potential coming from this card. I'm also getting a lot of air energy coming from this reading. So perhaps if you are in a relationship with someone who is an Aquarius, a Gemini, or a Libra, maybe this might resonate with you a bit further. But we've definitely got a lot of emotions coming from this card, coming from these readings. So overall, I feel like this Venus retrograde is going to be working on your sense of community or a particular relationship that you are currently in. So I hope this has given you some guidance. Thank you for subscribing to my Patreon. Your subscription means so much to me, and I really appreciate your support because it means that I can actually continue doing what I love. So thank you for that, and I will see you next time. Okay, so we are finally on Capricorn. Oh, and we're starting already. We have got the Chariot. So before I even start talking about the cards, this card is representing what your heart wants to speak of this Venus retrograde and what your heart wants to be honest about, wants to be open about. Our next card is going to be for... Oh no. Sorry, it just started absolutely chucking it down. Our next card is going to be for what kind of self-care you can practice, what kind of self-care and oh my goodness, that is coming down. We've got the Ace of Wands reversed. Okay, well, this card has thrown itself out twice, so I guess it really wants us to see the Six of Cups. Hi guys, sorry about the sudden outfit change and the abrupt stop. As I said, we are currently in the middle of a thunderstorm and the wagon that we reside in decided to allow it inside, so we had to sort that out. But we are now on Capricorn and we are looking at Capricorn's Venus retrograde message, and as I was saying, we have the Chariot for what your heart wants to be open about, the Ace of Wands reversed for what kind of self-love you can give yourself, and the Six of Cups because this one was stalking the entire reading, for what kind of love are you ready to receive. So we'll look at what your heart is ready to be open about, and we have pulled the Chariot. Now the Chariot, I feel, is a very positive card. I feel a lot of good progressive energy coming from this card right here. So I feel like your heart is wanting you to be open about actually pushing yourself forward. And this, I feel, resonates with this Six of Cups card, but I will get to that later. I feel like the Chariot is telling you that it wants you to push yourself. It wants you to actually explore a project or an endeavour that you may have been putting off, you may have not been so confident in, you may have not had sort of a gut feeling about it, but I feel like this card is your sign, it is your message, it is telling you that it is time to move forward. Now obviously Venus retrograde is normally referred to as ex-lovers returning, but it also revolves around sort of material comforts that we find a deep connection with. So perhaps this is less to do with a relationship and more to do with a project or some kind of material endeavor. So this, I feel, is your message to really connect with yourself, really combine all your energies, perhaps even collaborate with those around you and just push yourself forward, push yourself into it and get a move on and get it done. Now the Ace of Wands, I feel like this whole reading really resonates with this Chariot card, because the Ace of Wands as what self-love can you give yourself at the moment, I feel sort of implies this idea of almost having so much going on at once that you don't know what to do, you don't feel the energy to do it because you're expending so much energy on so many other things that don't actually amount to anything. So I feel like the self-love that you can give yourself is to actually focus on this one project, focus on this one thing that actually gives you this really confident boost and go forward with it. And that is the self-love, this actually dropping projects that are no longer serving you, dropping projects that don't actually bring you anything, and just getting on with this one thing that actually gives you a sense of progression and actually gives you this feeling of moving forward and gives you this feeling of success and really strong confidence. So then we have the love that you're ready to receive, and we have got the Six of Cups. Now, as I was saying with the Chariot and with the Ace of Wands, I feel that this is sort of implying that, much like I said with the Ace of Wands, dropping external projects, and I feel like this is saying that instead of carrying them with you like a heavy weight, you should actually do something that not only gives you a feeling of progression, but gives you a feeling of clarity and gives you a feeling that your emotions are coming into a lighter area, that you're actually seeing your way through a potentially quite crowded period, a potentially quite hectic period. You should actually focus on something that is giving you this emotional support and this emotional help that you actually need. And you should be doing something for yourself that gives you this feeling of seeing your way out of the dark, and not just be flooding yourself with too many things at once, which is just going to make you feel overwhelmed, which is just going to make you feel like you don't actually have the energy to be keeping up with anything, and actually be focused on something that gives you this push and this confidence forward. Now, as I was saying, I do feel that this is to do with a comfort, a sort of luxury comfort. There's also a lot of water energy in this reading. As you can see, we've got the Cancer with the Chariot and the Scorpio with the Six of Cups. So perhaps if you are if this sort of is affiliated with a water sign, or if there is a water sign that is sort of intruding or could be a collaboration, then maybe they are going to be the one to give you this push and to give you this help. So that was my reading for Venus retrograde for Capricorns. I hope this has given you some guidance. Again, I do apologise about the outfit change. It is now very cold in this room and quite wet, so I've had to dress appropriately. But thank you for subscribing to my Patreon. It means so much to me that you're actually thinking what I'm doing is worth something, and I'm very grateful for it. So I hope this has given you some guidance, and I will be back tomorrow for another Venus retrograde.